Hey everybody, tonight we're going to be talking about the DJG mechanical fan slider. This happens to be a very interesting piece. I had my doubts, but I'm very glad I got it. We're going to be comparing this to a few other fan style sliders. I have a few magnetic and mechanical versions to share with you, and we'll do the usual. Take it apart, measure it, weigh it, compare it, all that stuff. So please stick around, we'll have some fun. So like I said, I wasn't sure about this. I definitely had my doubts. I did not like the overall fan style, and that's why I tried something like this first, the Caius Lucky Ballad. And I'm quite happy with it too, except that it's such a beast. If it were titanium, it would be a lot lighter, but this is quite heavy. This is nice and light. These are both stainless steel. But this one, right out of the box, I had a heck of a time figuring out how to get a good flow going. And what really helps is to add a lanyard on there. We'll put that on in a minute. But just out of the box, I wouldn't change anything. There's a single spring and ball on each layer that runs on these tracks. You can see these two. And they don't give you much to work with. In fact, we can cover that right now. What came in the box? Well, there was no box. This came from the Valerian or Valley Rain store. And we know from a previous purchase, this is the DJG mechanical slider in PEI, and this is the DJG mechanical slider in stainless. And I had bought this from a store that I don't prefer to promote, and whenever I did this video and this video, I used a news store called Valley Rain or Valerian, however you want to pronounce it. And I like that store. However, this store, Valerian, does not give you the original box. Like this should have come in a little metal tin. It should have come with some paracord. It didn't. This did, but this came from a different store. It also cost about $10 more. So with the Valley Rain store, what I've found is you get stuff very quickly. So I think this was around 10 days. And with other stores, it'll take a little longer. But they'll give you the box, perhaps. Valley Rain saves money by not including the box and shoving everything into an envelope that just fits these two things, and they were both wrapped in bubble wrap. So I think, they get a smaller shipping rate. It's less weight because there's less stuff in there. They can get it to you faster. But again, you won't get the box that it came in. So keep that in mind. But what you do get is the two white balls. We'll measure the diameter of those in a minute, but the other ones are 3mm black ceramic. I've given up trying to remember which ones. The black ones are silicone nitride, and the white ones are what? Zirconium oxide. I just call them black ceramic and white ceramic. I think that's good enough. These two larger white balls are probably POM, and I would call those friction balls, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. They don't actually perform a function of rolling or causing the detents to click. They ride in these two tracks right here. You just can't see them. So that's what came in the box. These interesting little wrenches. You need one for each side because you turn it from both sides. We'll get those out in a minute. So surprisingly, this was under $40. And I could sort of see why at first, because at first I really had a heck of a time, like I said, trying to figure out how to hold this thing and use it. And I'm sort of demonstrating now the best way for me to do it. I'm right-handed. Now what's funny is out of the box, I was trying to do everything you think of. Intuitively, what I want to do is push downward, but you can't. It won't go in that direction. Now, in the left hand, you can do that. And it's funny because the left hand became easier for me to do this in my left hand right off the bat than it was with my right hand. And I'm right-handed. So I started to think, boy, it's a shame that it's not symmetrical, because it doesn't matter if you flip it over. If you want to go in a downward position, you have to... I'm losing my train of thought here. My point is, you can't just switch. You can push down when it's in your left hand, but when it's in your right hand, you can't push down. You have to push this way. And at first, I was doing all my pushing from out here at these edges, out here at the top. And that's quite a long ways to go. When you look at where my finger is here and my thumb is here, to get those to go that far apart from each other is kind of a trip. And when I quickly found out, not quickly, what I slowly found out was it's easier to spread this out like a deck of cards when you hold it down here towards the bottom. And what also guided me in that direction were the machining lines on this. Not the machining lines, but the chamfer that they decided to put into the design, which put me to mind to this thing. I was having some trouble using this at first, until I sort of realized that it's best if you keep your thumb up around here where this little sort of reverse radius occurs. It's just a better place to start. And it's almost like they're trying to guide you by putting that there. Because in this case, if you put your thumb down here, instead of up here, if you put it down here, you start to run into the dovetail piece underneath, and it's kind of sharp. So I took a hint from this and looked at this, and the more I played around with it, the more I realized as you sort of squeeze it in your hand and you twist your fingers, it becomes a lot easier to do than clear up here at the top. And you can do it however you like. Now over here, that's a hard thing to do, because I'm tempted to, I want to make it go this way, and it won't. It'll only go this way. So holding it like that doesn't work in that hand. In this hand, I can do that a little bit better. So, it's not ambidextrous. Is that the word? It's not something you can use equally in your right hand and your left hand. But I found that if you just hold it sort of in an upward manner like this, and you sort of squeeze your fingers, twist them as you're squeezing them, that you can do that a lot easier. You can open it up a lot easier. And then you just sort of drop it down a little bit and squeeze it at the top to bring it back together. Move your fingers back down to the bottom, bring them up to the top, bring them down to the bottom, bring them up to the top. You get the idea. And you can get a pretty good flow going. Now, I could not do that for the first well, at least for the first 2 hours, probably. So, keep that in mind. Okay, let's do some comparisons and weights, and then we'll take it apart. Did I say this was only about 40 bucks? That's pretty impressive. And as you saw at the beginning of the video, there are two different versions, a bare stainless steel one and a black one. But here's your one of your sort of standard sliders, mechanical sliders. The Top B by Metal Toys DZ. The Mackie CP3. And now for some that are similar, I don't have many. The two that I have that are similar mechanically would be the Cashew, Mechanical Cashew, version 1 by Gal Studio. I don't know if that's a good way to compare them or not. Let's just do the side-by-side thing here. Oops. We have the Mechanical Cashew version 2, just slightly bigger than the one I just showed you. Of course, it's all plastic. Now, I have 3 others that are magnetic. Actually, earlier versions of the Cashew. This was the first Cashew that came out. Barely makes a noise. There's just some magnets and balls to the ball slider, magnetic ball slider. More of a texture thing than a noise thing. Then the other mechanical. Did I do this one already? Hope not. The Cashew, Magnetic Cashew version 2. Or was it, yeah, version 2, I believe? I don't know. I've lost track. This one has 3 levels. It's magnetic ball slider. Fairly chunky. And lastly, this would be a nice magnetic comparison, the Gal Rice Ball Rocker. This one is underrated. A great piece. Absolutely great piece. Now let's just do these side by side. Sorry for the length of the side-by-side presentation, but who knows which one of you has one of these, or one of these, or one of the other ones. At least you'll get an idea what the sizes are. So that is it for comparisons. I think this will be the last thing we do before we take it apart, is to weigh it. And there are no magnets in this, so we can just lay it right down on there. 94, 95. That's fairly heavy. Let's compare that to this. No magnets again. 81. And then we know that this one's a chunker. I think this one's 101. Oh my god, 135. What was I thinking? Something I did recently was just over 100. But yeah, there you go for weight comparisons. One more time. 95 grams. Only available in stainless steel, black, or silver, so they're both going to weigh the same. Real quickly, let's just discuss the lanyard attachment point. That's big enough for either gutted paracord or regular paracord, I would imagine. I'm happy that my clips fit in there just right. When I am using a lanyard, I like to put it between my last 2 fingers here like this. And I think in this case, in this particular design case, I think that it really helps out a lot. Helps you maintain a good grip on it, a good position on it. You're not concentrating on that so much. It takes away from your enjoyment of the use of the toy. So, yeah, big difference. Let's try it with the left hand here. Put it between my fingers like I said I would normally do. See, it just seems so much more natural on the left hand. You don't have to go through all those extra motions. It's just sort of a back and forth thing. Back over here again. To move it in the other direction. It does take a little bit of practice. And you can open it clear over here at the top if you want, like I said. It's a long trip for your fingers to make. Or again, down here at the bottom, you just squeeze it and sort of twist it at the same time. It actually feels kind of neat across the surface of your thumb and your finger back here as that rides into its final position there. Last thing to mention is it does click one click backwards in each piece. So you got two clicks, I guess. But that's kind of a weird thing. I'm not sure why they did that. I don't really get much pleasure. If it was two more clicks back, then you could feel a little bit better. Sometimes I like that in a slider. If I'm trying to be quiet, I might use it like this. But that requires more than just one click in either direction. That's like 2 clicks in either direction. For whatever reason, that's how that works. But would be nice if it slid in both directions equally, but you have to realize that if they did that, right now it slides open this far. And if they did that, they could do it, but it would only be able to open up about that far in either direction. So you'd have a maximum swing of about that far in that direction, and then that far in the opposite direction. That'll become a little bit more evident when I take it apart here. So yeah, I'm happy with it just the way it was. But if you're going to buy one, give yourself a little bit of time to acclimate your fingers to it, your grip. And like I said, you'll be doing yourself a favor to put a little lanyard of some sort on there. So let's go ahead, take this apart. For heaven's sakes, one last thing. I get so busy talking, I forget what I'm doing. So in its most open position, we'll go a little bit backwards here in this case, we're at 62 millimeters. When this is closed and say it's in your pocket, you've got this lanyard part sticking out that you might have to contend with. You know, if you didn't like that, it wouldn't be hard to grind that off if you didn't need it. But let's just do an overall height, including the lanyard clip. I get 58, 59. Without the lanyard clip, we're at about 54. Width up here is just about a little bit over 30 millimeters, and the thickness, general thickness, is just over 15. When we get down here to where the pivot point is, the screw heads stick out a little bit further, and that's about 18 millimeters. I think that covers everything. Let's take it apart. Well, I hope if you buy one of these that it comes with this tool, because otherwise you're going to have a fun time taking it apart. We have a very unique type of Chicago screw. A Chicago screw is something that sort of screws from both ends like this does. I'll bring it up close so you can see what kind of a screw head that is on both sides. That's not your typical Phillips head. It's not a flat head. You do need a special tool to get in there, and these are the tools they provided us with. Trying to give you a good focus. I can't quite see if it's in focus or not, so I'm moving it about. But these are well made. These are actually steel. What you'll want to do is sit this thing up on its end, and then use your eyeballs if you can to locate one side or the other. And once they're in there, they're pretty much in place. Now twist them away from each other just a little bit, and then stop. I'm going to put this one off to the side. Now I've loosened them. Now there are 2 springs and balls in here. They're not going to go shooting out anywhere, but I want to, at this point, I'm more concerned about all the parts. Most of your parts are located right here in this pivot point, if you can believe it or not. I think there's 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 sets of special bearings, and then a washer on top and bottom of each. And that is what I want to keep from flying all out apart over the place. So I'm using the back of my finger to hold the back of the screw steady, and I'm using this to finish undoing the screw. Wouldn't matter what side you're doing this from front or back. And you can even get it out to that point and start to just use your own fingertips. Oh, see there, this is in the very end up here. The bearing assembly has fallen out. But here's one side of the Chicago screw. The other side is back here. And as it dropped out, it also dropped out the bearing and washers. So there's a bearing and 2 washers in each one of these locations. There's 2 more sets of them in here. So at this point, it doesn't really matter which way I'm laying it down. I'm just going to lift off the top part, lay it on its side. I see the ball and spring are here. I'll just get those out with my bare fingers and move them off to the side. And then I can lift off this middle piece, move it over here. There's the other ball and spring. Put that off to the side. And now we have in here, still resting in place, the bearing assembly. And I'll open it up in my hand here for you. And what you have are 2 very thin washers and 1 tiny little plastic encased bearing. And all the little bearing balls, but you can feel them moving around. They're all independent. They spin freely. And actually, when you put this back together, when you do it yourself the first time, you'll realize that these are being put under an awful lot of pressure. So that little assembly works pretty well. I'll just set these off to the side here too. And then there's another set right here. You want to be careful not to lose any of these washer bits. And you know what? There's one right there. I was going to say one's missing. I was going to say they forgot to give me one, but they didn't. They're all here. Okay, there's the whole thing taken apart. You see close up here, that is where the spring and the ball reside. And then this piece, is it this piece? No, that would be the front piece. Well, it only goes back together in one way, but there's where the spring and ball are held. And right next to that is where what I call the friction ball rests. And the little nylon ball, we'll pop that out of there. Or will we? Let's try the other one. It's over here. It's right here. Well, it doesn't have to come out. It's trying to come out, but it's a little bit dirty. We'll measure. I wanted to measure what the diameter of one of those was. So let's do that quickly. Just so that you know, in case you lose one. I didn't bring my new digital calipers over, so hopefully this falls on an even number. These are exactly 4mm balls. And the tiny balls are probably 3. Whoops. They are exactly 3. Okay. So it's nice they give you extra white balls. I don't think they're going to wear down on you, though. I'll be there in case you lose them. A couple of extra black balls. These are also black, ceramic. And then it looks like 2 extra springs. And the springs are 3mm diameter, but they appear to be very short, like 3mm tall, instead of your usual 4mm tall. And they're fairly stiff, so I'm going to say it's probably a 0.35mm diameter wire. Now, let us put this back together. So if you're like me, by this point in time, you've completely lost track of which part went where and when. But we know that this is the middle piece because that has the lanyard on it. So let's just do some dry fitting here, see what fits and what doesn't fit. Looks like these two would go together pretty good, right? And that's the middle piece. This one would have to sit on top, and that would work out pretty good too. So just like that, we figured it out. Now, would it work the other way? Got the middle piece here. Put this down here. No, it won't work because there's nothing to catch. This part needs to ride in this piece here. So you'll see, just remembering that the middle piece has to be in the middle, eventually you'll put the whole thing back together again the way that it should be. Now what I'm going to do, as I've never done this on camera, I have done it off camera, I'm going to start with this piece, and I'm going to load on one washer, one bearing, and one washer. Now that is going to be the very bottom piece. So where were we here? No, we were here. No. Where were we? Good question. I've lost my place already. That's the middle. So this piece could go here, and this piece could go here. That works. So I'm going to put this in through the bottom. That is the bottom piece put in. Now I'm going to drop a washer down, then a bearing, and then a washer. And I'm going to take the middle piece now, and I'm going to lay it down in here. Now I'm not going to tighten this whole thing down until we're done. Right now we're just going to work on getting the bearings, and we'll worry about the springs and balls last. Again, put a washer down, then a bearing, and then a washer. And finally, the last piece. Now before we put the washer and bearing and everything on, pick everything up and hold it together like this. Swing it out open. Now it's loose enough that you can swing it open past where you're supposed to be able to. You see what I'm doing here? Normally it stops in that position, but since it's still loose, I can lift it off of that, and I can lift it off of that. Now keep everything together in the middle. All you have to do is drop your spring and ball into both of these locations. And then gently lift the bottom piece over top of your bottom spring and ball, and maybe press that little spring and ball down a little bit, make it easier. Now that one's in place. Whoops. I'm going to bring this over. So I'm going to lift it up. It helps to push that ball down out of the way a little bit. So you lift this part up a little bit, move it over, and now it's in. I'm still squeezing it together at the bottom, and now we can do the final ball bearing assembly, which means again we got to drop in a washer, a ball bearing, and a washer, and the last thing would be the other screw head. So get that in there and carefully get it started. If there's any interference, don't force it at all. This is the only screw you got. You screw it up, you're screwed. So I'm bringing it down, and just tighten it by fingers as far as I can. Now I think it's safe to pick up and sit down like that. Now I can take these two little tools again and find where they fit in there, and then turn one. They both go in different directions. I'm going to be turning them like this way. As soon as I find out where they fit. I'm trying to see this from the side here. There's one, there's the other. Whoop. Sorry, there's one, there's the other. Now I'm going to twist them both as hard as I can without being crazy, but I do want to use a significant amount of force because you got to figure this part has to be held together very tightly so that this part doesn't get sloppy on you. So now we should be right back where we started, which we are. So unfortunately, it didn't come with any extra balls. Other than replacement balls, there were no other different types of balls to try and no other types of springs to try. But to be honest with you, I'm quite happy with the selections they made for us. It's got a nice click to it. Doesn't feel sticky. Like I said, I do prefer, where did it get to? I do prefer, have a lovely clip on there. I usually, like I said, I usually don't carry this one around, but I'm so proud of that knot. That was so hard to do. And And you don't have to do that. You can make these yourself. I will put a link in the comments this time. I made a video about how to make one of these little lanyard clips for yourself. I don't sell them. I just tell you how to make them and where to buy that little clip at. You can get them on Amazon. So that is all I have to say about that. Don't give up on it right out of the box. Play with it for a while. Get used to it. I'm pretty sure you'll be happy. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching. Bye.